Hello subscribers, see it Eldred here. I'm doing a video right now on Ron's second suggestion for a topic that he came up with, which I think is a great idea. He wanted me to go over, carbon versus aluminum bars, and the timing's great because I have direct experiences with both. And the approach I want to use to be fair to both materials is that I personally ride only aluminum bars, and I'll tell you why. Years ago when I raced, long before the carbon craze came about, everybody had aluminum bars. Remember the Chanelli bars and all that. I'm kind of dating myself, but Chanelli bars in the 90s and so forth. When carbon came out, I kind of got away from that. And 2 years ago, I was on a ride with my group on a Saturday morning, and we had just gone through a sprint point, and I was off the front alone, and I just fell. I basically flipped over. I was by myself, flipped over, landed up on my back. My hand basically just went like that. I was on the bars, on the tops, because the sprint was over, and my hand just went in a hole. The bar just basically gave way. I flipped over, landed on my back. Fortunately, I only scratched my elbow. It's a bit of a scar. It's kind of blended in over the years. And I didn't know what had happened. There was nobody around me. Everybody was like, what? So I sat by the side of the road because, after a crash, I learned that you check yourself out first. So I sat on the curb, checked myself, and then I saw that this was scratched. My elbow had a scratch, and that was it. Nothing was broken or anything. And so then somebody brought the bike to me, one of the guys in the group, and I picked up the bike and I looked at it, and the left handlebar was just hanging. The tape was still on it, but the bar wasn't connected. And I was like, and I didn't, I hadn't hit anything. So we do a lot of loops where I wasn't too far from where I live. I was about 7 miles from home. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. I didn't want to ruin the ride for everybody. I was fine. I didn't hit my head or anything. I actually landed on my back. My pump was in my jersey, and my jersey had a bit of a, it's always your new jersey, one of my favorite jerseys, and that the pocket was kind of ripped a little bit, and I was a little dismayed for that, and it's the funny thing we think about, right? So anyway, I told the guys, hey, go ahead and finish the ride. I'm close to home. I'll take a shortcut and get home. So I rode back home just holding the right side, which was still solid. The bar was still attached, but this left side was hanging with the shifter and everything, that whole curve on the bar. Basically, this side of the bar was just collapsed right here, just hanging. So anyway, I got home because, I'm pretty much a full-fledged mechanic. Took everything apart, and to my surprise, the carbon was completely like it had peeled over time, and it just gave way. So needless to say, I ordered an aluminum bar. I've got the triple T, I think it's Toronado or Tornova. Old school, I like deep drop bars. That's what you see here. This one, I'm gonna tape it. I'm making a video for one of our subscribers wants a video on bar taping, so I'm gonna do that too. But this one's gonna be taped, this new bar. So these are all aluminum bars that I run. And that's the reason I went back, because what it turns out is when I contacted the rep that I had gotten it from, he said that it's possible that maybe I went to a race one time or something could have banged it. And once carbon gets compromised, they're applied in layers and they can peel. Now, I don't want to talk anybody out of carbon, but what he told me was if your bars ever get hit and you have carbon bars, then you really want to weigh whether you continue to use the bars or get a new one, because any kind of hit, a heavy hit. So, my bike could have fallen at a race or something. I never crashed with it, but he said that if it falls or gets banged up or whatever, and I told him, the way I baby my bikes, I just didn't get it. So anyway, that was my reason for switching back to aluminum, because Carbon bars were really nice. They had the one I had flat tops, you know, you could really rest on it. It was kind of neat and I really liked it, but I switched for that reason. Then recently, there's a video I made on here that everybody had liked a lot. The one that says slamming bike stem, slamming the bike stem. That bike that I used in that video, after I cut the stem down for my client, he asked me to change the bar tape. If you watch that video, you'll see his bar tape is all scuffed up. So I mentioned that to him and he said, yeah, just change the bar tape. When I unwrapped his bar, I could literally squeeze his handlebar down here. I could squeeze it like a banana, the carbon bar, you know, where the plugs go in the end of the bar, right here. I could squeeze it together with my index finger and my thumb. And I called him right away and said, look, I can't wrap this bar with new tape because it's not safe. Because most of the time, you know, this is a position here other than the hooks. You can rest on here. This thing was giving way on his bike. Then he told me, yeah, he had a crash a year ago, and where he had taken the bike, the guy at the bike shop said, it looks okay. You don't need to change the bars. You know, these bars are not cheap. Let's be real. Carbon bars especially. They can be anywhere 100 and something, 200, you know, they're crazy. So the guy was trying to save him money and said, well, you know, it's on the end of the bar where the plug goes. And then over the time of about a year, he noticed that that plug never quite stayed in. And that was the reason. The carbon was unraveling. Where he had crashed and it hit the road, the layers of carbon had been peeling. So when I unwrapped it, carbon was stuck to the tape because it had already unraveled. So the tape just took it off. And that affects the integrity of the carbon. So it's not the carbon's fault. So if you're gonna have carbon bars and you bang it, it's 50-50 whether you keep it on the bike or get a new one. But as expensive as they are, this example I use is an example where people are like, you know what? I didn't hit it that hard and blah, 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 you know. And so in my experience with this, I decided I'm not gonna take the chance. We got enough issues crashing with dogs and potholes and all that. I'm not gonna increase the chances with a carbon bar. And there's a lot of people in the pro peloton that use aluminum bars. The weight is negligible, you know, so it's not an issue. It's just a matter of whether you want to roll the dice that way or not. So either or, I personally don't see why they charge that much. I think carbon's just high. Even the frame sets, the carbon frame sets charge a lot. I mean, this blue frame set is steel, and I paid $2,200 custom frames at $2,200. A carbon frame would be like $8,000. You know, it's just crazy. So they charge a lot for them, and they're very fragile. If you get them and you never bang them up and they don't fall, you're good. You're good as gold. But if there's a doubt, then it becomes iffy. That's the biggest thing with carbon. So I prefer the aluminum bars because the aluminum would bend and it won't break on me. So my situation was, the rep said it was a catastrophic failure. That's what they called it. You know, I wasn't injured or anything. And because I deal with them a lot, he gave me a credit for the bars. You know, the bars are expensive. It was made by Easton. You know, they made good stuff. I'm not dogging the product. I had them for many years. I'm saying more than 5 years. So it could have fallen and I didn't know about it, but I never crashed it. Now my client's situation, he actually crashed it. He saw the damage, but he and his mechanic were discussing and weighing and saying, I don't think you really need to do it. But so the thing that I want to add here is carbon is done in layers. So once it's compromised, it can peel like a banana. It can unravel. Just keep that in mind if you have carbon bars. You know, you crash with them, don't take the chance, you know. They may seem okay, but until somebody really studies them or, you know, under a microscope, however they do it, you can't look at them and see the problem. That's the biggest thing with carbon bars. So I stick with aluminum bars. There's no difference that you're not losing anything to weight or whatever. I just like the fact to know that my bars are gonna be there because when I'm sprinting and stuff, I'm a big guy and I like, you know, I move my bike and I want to make sure my bars don't give away. And the experience I had scared the crap out of me because I basically went over. It's like you're on the bar and then you put your weight and nothing's there. That's kind of like walking into a hole that you don't see. that was what, it just caused me to crash, and I flipped over. So that was not an experience that I wanted to, go through again. So there's no definitive thing. It's just a matter of preference, and that's the same thing going on in the Peloton. A lot of people still ride aluminum bars for that very reason. Because those guys, they're racing all year long. Stuff. Things fall. They don't want to do it. That's the main reason I like aluminum. You bang them, they're fine. You can see the dent. There's not going to be a hairline crack in it that will be unraveling under your tape. And that's just the nature of carbon. So that's it. That's all I have to say about carbon handlebars versus aluminum. So be safe on the roads.